This episode is brought to you by Farmers Insurance.
Russia claims a leak of classified Pentagon documents about the war in Ukraine reveal nothing new. That's as questions remain about the authenticity of the files. The U.S. could pull its support for Ukraine and leave Europe to face the conflict on its own. That's the warning to the French president from a Republican senator. Entering choppy waters, tensions spike in the Pacific region as a U.S. Navy vessel sails through the South China Sea, all while Beijing holds major drills all around Taiwan. Coming to you live.
Tools to tackle the toughest jobs, because we were born outdoors. This is our turf. Echo. Power on and on.
For 25 years, Consumer Cellular's goal has been to provide wireless service that helps people communicate and connect. We offer a variety of no-contract plans, and our U.S.-based customer service team can help find one that fits you. To learn more, visit consumercellular.tv.
Some things just make you feel more alive than others. Like the rush of adrenaline from an SUV that roars from 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. Jaguar delivers that thrill every day. The F-Pace, how Jaguar makes an SUV.
Will Turkey ratify Sweden's NATO membership? Stockholm says it can't fulfill all Ankara's demands. As the bloc's membership requires unanimous approval, what would make Turkey change its mind? And what does all of this mean for NATO's future? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Mohammed Jamjoom. One of the many fallouts of Russia's invasion of Ukraine has been that previously neutral Nordic countries.
Now that's volume at 14. Let's get some volume.
Welcome to Thomas's Comparison Driving Lounge, starting here with the BMW 540i, the 6-cylinder in the 5 Series, and they with the DS7 Crossback E10s, and in this case also the 4x4 version. So you can get the very same drivetrain as you can get for the 508 with the front-wheel drive only and the electric support, but here then in this case with an additional electric motor in the rear, giving us the all-wheel drive and the only all-wheel drive possibility then for this vehicle. So no pure combustion engine all-wheel drive possibility is actually present. However, it doesn't really matter that much if it's front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. In most situations not. It's more about the acceleration figure then. So this car is definitely quicker than in this version. So when you have the acceleration figure, you usually be closer to 9 seconds. Here we'll be about 6.6 seconds, so definitely way quicker. And of course, if you are living in countries or have some situations where you really need that all-wheel drive, then it also makes sense. In general, about the DS7 Crossback here, you have an upright seating position, that's really good, and you have a nice overview to the front. For the B-pillar, it's good to have a blind spot monitor, which we have on board here. To the rear, of course, the visibility is a little bit limited because the window is quite, slim and limited. And the steering feeling here is quite light, but still, precise enough. And I think that's really different to the Citroën and the Peugeot cars here in the DS. I feel they mastered it a little bit better, that they have a more connected steering feeling. So it's a really great job. So it feels connected to the road, car and driver. So I'm really very positively surprised about that. It will also change according to the driving modes. At the moment we are right here, driving mode. We're just in the hybrid driving mode, so that means the car decides itself when just to use the combustion engine and when to drive just electric. And when we're just rolling, most of the time there's just then the electric drivetrain active, and then when we push the throttle, then actually the combustion engine also goes on. And you can also have then the different gauges here while driving. It's a little bit distracting that they take so much time to, you know, to load with this fancy visualization. And then we can also have these gauges in here. There are also the separate E-gauges here. We can also check out the flow right here, and then we can also see it. So when I'm off the throttle, actually, here we're gaining back battery energy. There we can see also in this visualization they put 2 of the electric motors here. Yeah, I guess it's better to see that. There again, what is active and what not. Yes, I mean the question is, what will you actually, you know, do when you drive the car, you know? So I think you won't look at that all the time. Here, I think surprisingly often the combustion engine is on. You can see it right here. But for example, when I switch to the electric mode intentionally, here we go, then combustion engine also goes off. Here I can see now, that's of course pretty cool. You can see then off, and then either rolling, for example, and nothing is active. So, and the pure electric driving mode, here again, fully charged, 50 kilometers, 30 miles of range. So it's actually quite acceptable. And there also the question is, are you using this energy first and then set on the combustion engine? On short rides, maybe yes, and then you recharge electrically. And on longer rides, you would rather use the hybrid mode then, and then try to use the combustion engine when that is more efficient, and the electric drive when you have like stop and go and something. Here in the electric mode, by the way, you can have here decent acceleration, also just pure electric. Sounds good, all silent, great electric driving moments. That's really so much more fun, and this car feels pretty agile, although it's it feels like a grown-up SUV, and it's just so much more fun to drive it all electric. Actually, that's pretty cool. And we'll head out to the motorway now to test something of the performance. So far, I think a very good and comfortable setting. The performance version usually comes with 19-inch wheels. These here are the option 20-inch wheels. If you want more comfort, you would of course stick with the 19-inch wheels. But here with the 20-inch wheels together with this active scan suspension, how it is called, I think it does a good job. So it's now here electric acceleration once more. Let's see. Yeah, it actually has a nice electric punch, like the pure electric punch, so that's totally fine. Now onto this construction site here. Cruise control, there's also lane keeping assist, and also the distance to the car in front of us is being kept. You can set the cruise control here at the lower lever. Let's see how the lane keeping assist is changing here, what we do. Distance adjustment, set it here also on the lower column. There we go. So here you can see the active lane keeping assist. Now realize that there's lines around left and right, even here in the construction site. Let's see how it performs. Now there's a slight left corner. So far it was quite, unintrusive. Felt quite natural. Yeah, I think that's actually a good job. And again, I'm really positively surprised here about the steering feeling. I wonder why they couldn't just do that at Peugeot the very same way. So pretty cool. The sports mode we will drive soon when we have a harsher acceleration. Actually, over here now, I can switch the side. But here, as soon as I want to drive it a little bit more agile way, it's actually no problem. So, they have more like this comfort and luxury image, but I think this car also drives surprisingly sporty, and especially as the plug-in hybrid version, of course, you always have more punch. But here now again, I recuperated the whole way, also when going downhill, and now just stop and start. You don't need the typical stop and start function from the combustion engine. You have it already included, so to say. Other driving modes, by the way, comfort and electric, they are not really that different. Whatever. So, and I switch this side here, all electric here, and it really feels agile, especially when you drive it all electric. Wow, this is so cool. Actually quite okay. Then again, charging a little bit when I go off the throttle. The recuperation effect as for the braking is not that harsh. And here we go. So definitely this car is more fun as a plug-in hybrid version than it is with the combustion engine version. So of course it is more expensive. However, best price performance here would then be to pick the front-wheel drive only version, also with the plug-in hybrid. Rear-wheel drive plus then, or like this all-wheel drive, that you also have the rear electric motor. This is indeed something then when you want more performance. Let's see about that. And here we go now, we put to the sports mode. Sports mode then, you know, all the boost that is available, maximum. We're starting at about 40 kilometers an hour. Let's see, and let's go. So far, pretty interesting drive. And does it really fit together? Because I just said that it's, you know, somehow leaning and stuff, but yes, the basic setup is soft. And that's the one at 70 kilometers an hour. To cancel at the end. Wow, there was some serious boost. So this is indeed the big difference then. So this powerful acceleration then with the all-wheel drive, 2 electric motor, 300 horsepower. Pretty impressive, and you wouldn't expect it maybe from this car or from this brand because they have like a performance image or something. It's not that silent here now at higher speeds. Even at here at about 130 kilometers an hour, I think it could be more silent. This car not laid out for so higher speeds. It might also be the building form of the SUV. So this is where, for example, the sedan or an estate has an advantage. There it's just a little bit more silent, a little bit less wind resistance and so on. So yeah, that's definitely something. I can just put the AC off for a moment, but no, that's not it. Just just to be safe, if it maybe was that, but that was not the case. But here also good feeling for the brakes. And now here about like 80 kilometers an hour, this is actually no problem as for noise insulation. But yeah, I think this is something that could work on with the noise insulation at higher speeds then. Here now cruising and soon going to tunnel. Once again, lane keeping assist for this vehicle. The good thing for me is really again this upright seating position. You more have a traveling position, in this vehicle. And although it's not one of the longest SUVs, but in the front you feel already quite, elaborated. And also this, abundance of Alcantara use here all over the car. This really gives you a good driving feeling. Here now at night you can see the big display once again and this analog clock. And once again digital instruments. Panoramic roof is also a nice option to have. Of course, it leaves more light in the interior, especially on darker days. You always have to think about if you're living like in a very, very hot climate, then it might make sense just to go with the normal roof that also sometimes included in the trim. Now we're still in sports mode. What I can also show you is there is also a four-wheel drive mode, and this is then ensuring that you always have the all-wheel drive. If you might be in situations where you're stuck or something, then you always have the all-wheel drive available. So this is more like a, I would say, safety thing or something. But then you really know that you can use that all. But usually it's not really necessary to use that. Just stick in with the hybrid mode. Again, a lot of fun to steer this car around. The suspension, by the way, is set rather on a soft tone. I think they have very good compromise between the sportiness and comfort. So I really like the setup, and this active scan suspension, how they call it, it really scans the road in advance and then adapts the dampers to it. And you really feel that it's not just a normal plain suspension, but really a more sophisticated one, and I really like that. So they definitely put up a premium vehicle here. So from all the driving you have, and also the ambience, the interior, they created here. So that's actually yeah, a very, very good feeling. The big question about SUV versus estate, it's really more about if you prefer this upright seating position. I found it indeed more comfortable. Then again, sedan or estate can be a little bit more silent on the motorway, especially at higher speeds. So that also depends on how fast are you actually going. Yeah, and of course then there's this thing with the trunk length, of course. So, and of course we will discuss that one further than in our final conclusion. So here, first of all, the last driving impressions. Here again, really fun, also in slalom-like. Lane change about 50 kilometers an hour, no problem. So indeed a fun SUV and something very exclusive. One thing I did notice on the negative scale is there is some squeaking sound here coming from the, not sure if you can pick that on the camera. When I steer left sometimes, there's this sound from the right back of the vehicle. What that could mean is sometimes, the rubber of the doors, they get a little bit dry. Sometimes wrong cleaners are being used. We had it on one driving event so far that suddenly all new cars were beginning to squeak, and the thing was just there was a wrong cleaning solution being used, and that actually dried out all the rubber pads, and then they started to like squeak against the metal. So maybe it's that. But of course, it shouldn't really happen. But we'll also take a closer look at that.
Let's get crazy.
And one more acceleration when we are already at speed, here at about 90 kilometers an hour, and let's go. So that's in 160 kilometers an hour, and yeah, pretty good, the acceleration again. Yeah, but again, the noise sensation could be a little bit better at higher speeds here. However, the stability then here, sports mode is also a little bit stiffer than, more feedback from the steering wheel and so on. Lane change, higher speed, here we go. Let's now drive the Peugeot 508 as the plug-in hybrid version here too, the SW, and just getting here on the motorway. Interesting turning indicator sound. That sounds a little bit cheap just from the turning indicator, but yeah, that's maybe just being ridiculous. We have a blind spot monitor here, this small dot. Small dot, it's really, really small, and it only appears in the direct moment where the car is in the blind spot. You could say this is more precise, so to say, but I think the systems that warn you a little bit in advance are a little bit better as for that. I wanted to try different things here with the plug-in hybrids today, and one thing I wanted to try with this car is also, what if you deplete it? And what's the fuel economy then when it's almost depleted? And also, how is it possible to recharge it while driving? That's of course not efficient, but there are often questions about, is that possible? And it is possible. So you can set this right side here to energy reserve and set to 10, 20 kilometers or max, and then the car now is recharging the battery while driving. Again, that is using a lot of fuel. It might make sense, when you think about future like emission zones, that you could, for example, only drive electric in the city and otherwise you're not allowed to enter. And then you could charge it here now on the motorway, and then you are still allowed to go inside the city, and that could be a use case. And it seems to me that with every kilometer I drive with petrol, another kilometer of battery range is added. You know what I mean? So this is possible, but again, it's not really an efficient method to do that. It's actually better than, of course, to always charge it at home or at work, to get to a charging station and so on. So these plug-in hybrid vehicles, of course, make sense when they are being charged at home frequently, definitely. So there's an adaptive cruise control available, and also lane keeping assist. However, here in the construction site, it's not really reacting very well. It's always a good test. Some cars do that, some don't. It's a little bit easier. Then let's see here. not steering. Now again, yeah, now it's picking up the lines here. Yeah, but no, you know, never trust it 100%. And also lane keeping assist here is from time to time a little bit nervous. So not the best lane keeping assist here so far. Of course, in the 508, no matter if it's a sedan or estate, you sit lower than in an SUV, have a normal mid-size sedan or estate feeling here from the seating position. You know, it's overall good and nice, and the overview is also not too bad. The big pillar here is super thick, so therefore the blind spot monitor is extremely important indeed. And now getting to about 100 kilometers an hour, and when I'm just running on the combustion engine, it's a small combustion engine for this car. Sometimes it feels a little bit stressed, you know what I mean? So this car is really so much better to drive when you have the electric support. That's just so much more fun to drive with this vehicle here, because then you can enjoy the silent moments. The electric acceleration is also very nice. 135 kilometers an hour is the maximum speed for pure electric driving. Everything above that is done then with the combustion engine. You can also very well see these hybrid gauges here in the front, not only the speed but also in here when I'm on the brakes and charging is happening, and when I'm a little bit more on the brakes, then here charge goes even fuller, and only if I need more braking power, then also the real brakes are being applied. So you also, yeah, save some brake pads, for example. Definitely, the effect is of course stronger with a pure electric vehicle, but here with a plug-in hybrid already existent. And it's always when you're going down a hill, you can regenerate once again a little bit more. So not everything is lost. Here now for our acceleration test, I'll turn off the power reserve. I'm not sure if that's costing any acceleration power, therefore I'm turning it off. And I'll put it to the sports mode. And then always, there's power both from the combustion engine and from the electric drive, just to give you the maximum boost. Here 8.1 seconds to 1 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. That's faster than with the front-wheel drive plug-in hybrid of the DS7 Crossback, and slower than the all-wheel drive version of the DS7 Crossback, so in between, so to say. So now getting like a flying start, and we'll start from about 40 kilometers an hour and then accelerate it out and also get some high speed for you. So let's see, next C-Class getting past, and let's go. So that's 180 kilometers an hour approximately, and that's also enough then here for our test for the day. I mean, quite reasonable acceleration, definitely. And here about 180 kilometers an hour, it also gets pretty loud, although the noise insulation is not that bad. This car was not really built for regular speeds like this, more like, let's go 130 kilometers or 80 miles an hour. This is still reasonable, also noise insulation wise, can't complain about that. And that's where the German manufacturers would still lead the French, because they really built for this Autobahn racing, really high speeds. The noise insulation is a little bit better than cars, more stable. Here, lane change at 130 kilometers an hour. Car feels still quite stable, but not so much in control like the sportier sedans or estates. So the suspension here is also set on a more neutral, softer tone, which is not bad at all, but not for super stability. The steering here is pretty direct. It doesn't convey a natural feeling road car driver. However, because it's so direct and it feels a little bit arcade-like, like a computer game, it also looks like this, like you would, in past times, just add, a arcade controller here to your PC or something. So it is definitely fun to drive, but not the most natural feeling. Again, this very unique cockpit setup really makes your driving somewhat special. So you always feel it would be something unique indeed. Here now the gauges at night, you can see. The good thing here about this iCockpit is relatively in your line of sight, relatively high, so that's also an argument that you would not need a head-up display. Some ambient lighting here, and also here. That's actually very nicely done. And then again, the question is, what's the difference then to like a typical premium car? I mean, this is more than 50,000 euros base price. So, especially in this spec, you could already consider this car here as premium, I think, you know. And it definitely delivers you also a very nice experience. We also talked about with the interior with the beautiful grey Alcantara seats. It's really so good. And it's also a nice seating position. However, as for me, as a tall driver, I definitely always feel that the SUVs are more comfortable long term. They're of course not more dynamic or something, you know, just in general, but just the long-term driving experience when you have a more upright seating position, it's to me a little bit more relaxing, and you feel also, you know, that you would have more space. Here you feel also when you're on a longer drive a little bit caged in, big middle console here. I don't have too much room for my legs, so I wouldn't exactly say that it's, you know, suited best for very, very tall drivers. However, of course, you know, I get along as you know, showed you in interior here now a little bit more dynamic driving. It's actually quite good. Again, this car is really fun to drive, and different possibilities you have here with the plug-in hybrid. And we will already have, you know, a couple of kilometers charged once again. And then, for example, we can, you know, if we want to, we could go to the electric mode and then just drive purely on the electric drive. So, and this again gives us this serenity we have here. Very good for traffic situations, for example, when there's like a, you know, red traffic light, we can just, you know, roll, or maybe I don't get the next green light and then I just roll a little bit further, just pure electric. And this is definitely reducing then the emissions inside the city. So always really good to have that. And you know, there's always a kick down possible for manufacturers usually say safety reasons. So let's say I'm driving all electric and then suddenly I need an acceleration because I need to get on the motorway a little bit faster in front of a different vehicle, and I hit the throttle. Then you hear, even in the electric mode, the combustion engine hops on. There are some plug-in hybrid vehicles where they always stay in the electric mode, even if you throw the throttle. And you can argue pro and against it. On the one hand, I like to stay in the electric mode, but it should actually be, you know, a plug-in hybrid with, you know, a lot of power reserves and so on, you know, that would be better, you know. So maybe it would be a good idea to limit that to the state of, you know, battery status or something, you know. So here back in the electric mode, then for example, rolling with 80 kilometers an hour, there you can also see when the combustion engine is on in these visualizations. Just doing this for demonstration purposes now. I guess it's not a good idea to look at them all the time when you drive it in everyday driving life. So there then it would be yellow from the combustion engine. Here when we're just keeping or maintaining the speed, the electric drive is also quite efficient. However, if you want to use it a little bit more efficient, then it's not the best way to always deplete the electric drive and then go with combustion engine. You can do that when you have very short trips, then put it in the electric mode and do all the short trips yourself with the electric drive. But when you have a longer journey and you know that you would deplete the electric drive anyways, then it's probably better to stay in the hybrid mode. So here, for example, then at the motorway, when we drive a little bit faster, we can use the combustion engine. It runs in a, you know, in a good state, so to say, in a very efficient area. So because the combustion engines, when we're driving like, you know, here like 100, 110 kilometers an hour, then they're relatively efficient, especially when we maintain a steady speed. But the lower speed, and like stop and go and so on, this is very inefficient for the combustion engine, and then you could more use the electric drive. And that's exactly happening in the hybrid mode, so I can basically recommend driving these plug-in hybrids in the hybrid mode.
Ukraine's preparations for a much vaunted upcoming counteroffensive. The papers also mention what the Western intelligence agencies would call
Welcome to Thomas's Comparison Driving Lounge. BMW 3 Series versus BMW 5 Series. Dreier gegen Fünfer, as we would say in German. So we put it to sports mode. We have different sports layout then, different visualizations. Going to the German Autobahn and high speed test. We start at 40 kilometers an hour. Let another car pass. Yeah, just to be safe. No one interferes with us. I don't interfere with anyone right there. So from 40 kilometers an hour, let's go. We got family SUV on the inside, but it feels agile and sporty due to this lower center of gravity battery all the way on the bottom of the vehicle. That's of course pretty cool. It's 180. It's almost 200 kilometers an hour. We're blocked right here. Okay, here we go again. Adaptive suspension in here. Left, wow. Really good contact to the road, super stable at higher speeds. Noise insulation is also decent, but wind noise are of course picking up at that speed here. Feel that is also a little bit louder than in the 5 Series. We will also experience or compare that later. Wow, but this feels so sporty, of course with the M Sport Pack, but even if you would have the normal suspension, the 3 Series in general has a sportier feeling than the 5 Series. That's already clear right now. Another lane change right here. And we can also switch it back to the comfort mode. Whew. Yeah, that was something. So indeed the 3 Series is more the driver-focused vehicle. It tells you, and especially when you have M Sport Pack, let's go attack. I also feel it from the seating position here. The seats, they are also way stiffer. Note that when you go for the perforated sensitive seats with both vehicles, they will deliver more comfort. They are more soft in the very surface. So this is something you have to consider. Here, once again with the animal skin seat, the surface is just stiffer and delivers less comfort. In the tunnel, yeah, I feel that it would be louder than the 5 Series. We'll also compare it then when we drive the very same road than with the 5 Series once again. It's indeed when you want to have more fun and want to have this, hey, let's go attack feeling, then the 3 Series is for you. Immediately you feel that the 5 Series would be more like a little bit more settled and a little bit more calm and so on. So this is the first main difference you immediately feel when comparing these two vehicles here. Driving wise, in the facelift here of the 3 Series, of course, driving hasn't changed that much. What is interesting also, as we recently had the Audi A4 versus Mercedes C-Class comparison, and there I decided for the Audi A4 because of more comfort in the seating ergonomics, and also that the C-Class has the more complicated user interface. And here it's a little bit different. Well, the user interface is still a little bit easier in the Audi because of the new OS 8 system, where I have the climate tunes and here also in the screen. However, here it's more that the 3 Series is even more sports focused, whereas the A4 delivers a little bit more comfort then. So would I decide for the Audi also against the 3 Series here in that respect? To me, seating comfort is very, very important, because you're sitting in that vehicle and maybe for hours and hours and hours. And that would be a very crucial aspect. And my second crucial aspect is that I want to have a natural steering feeling, which is at the same time progressive. It means not too much steering movement, so it needs to be sporty and precise, yet I want a natural feeling. And I'm not that satisfied with the steering feelings of the recent BMWs. Strangely, not with the SUVs. You know, especially like X3 and X5, X7 even, especially the bigger SUVs, have a very good steering feeling. And with the smaller, sportier vehicles for BMW, I miss a little bit natural feeling. It's not too bad at all, but here I would like that I get a little bit more feedback. Here in this setup here today, it's sometimes a little bit, it's sometimes a little bit strange. Sometimes it really depends all from vehicle to vehicle. See here, sports mode gives me a little bit more feedback. Comfort mode gets a little bit lighter. So today here in this 3 Series vehicle, it sometimes also depends on the tire choice and so on. It seems better than recently. yeah, or maybe at some point they also do some updates with that. So yeah, that seems today indeed better. It's a good surprise actually. But back to the C-Class A4 3 Series thing. The steering feel and the ratio and the seat ergonomics is the best in the Audi, plus the easiest user interface where you still have manual climate dials and so on. And these three things especially would rather drive me towards the Audi. What is actually better in the 3 Series and also in the C-Class, that rear-wheel drive is the standard here. So the X-Drive, the all-wheel drive is an option, but rear-wheel drive is always standard. So you either get very nicely out of the corners with pure rear-wheel drive, or when you have the X-Drive option, the all-wheel drive option, depending on the engine, you still have a rear-wheel bias, and that counts for the BMW and also for the C-Class. In the Audi, you just have the permanent quattro all-wheel drive when you, for example, have like, you know, S4 petrol engine or something. So quattro ultra then for the smaller engines. Yeah, that's the thing. So you have to check out the concise engine configuration. As for the comfort here with the suspension and so on, I would rather not pick anything that is connected with M suspension, in this case here in the 3 Series, because to me it's not comfortable enough. I think it gets too rough, especially then with the combination here with the biggest wheels. So when you go for something M suspension, then at least don't pick the biggest wheels. But although we have the adaptive suspension here, it's still not that comfortable, I feel. By the way, in the sports mode, what we can also do is then also use the shifting lever and go to the sports shifting mode.
What time is it?
Another acceleration, let's see if there's a difference.
The time is 2:12 a.m.
All right, and let's check the speakerphone.
130,
Let's go up another down.
150. Yeah, and you feel that shifting is even a little bit more aggressive. But wow, how sporty that car feels here, and in that corner. Yeah, again, the steering feel, especially at higher speeds here, could give me a little bit more feeling like, wow, that engine here also sounds awesome. I mean, 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, and yes, they also use sound actuator in the interior here because these cars are very well insulated nowadays, but that's an awesome sound indeed. And sound-wise, at least when you hammer the throttle, you don't really miss the difference then to the 6-cylinder engine. However, the 3-liter 6-cylinder is also available here in that M340i model. And the interesting thing is, if you compare this here to the 6-cylinder in the 3 Series or to the 6-cylinder in the 5 Series, the fuel economy does not differ that much. So with both 3 Series, 5 Series, and both the 2-liter engine and 3-liter, you can score something around 30 mpg, like some 729 approximately liters on 1 kilometers. And the difference or the favor to the smaller engine is maybe maximum a couple of mpg or like half liter, 1.5 liter maximum. So there's not a huge consumption difference. So in this respect, let's go back to normal driving mode. Mode. So in this respect here, I really have to say, you can easily go for the 3-liter 6-cylinder because it's the best BMW engine, is the most fun, without efficiency loss or something. It's of course a question of price. Here in the 3 Series, it's a higher price gap then, you know. So for example, in the US, you usually buy the 5 Series with the 3-liter 6-cylinder anyway. You can also get it rear-wheel drive only, for example. Controlling this car here while driving, you know, I do prefer the OS 7 in the 5 Series. We still have that. Here the OS 8, especially because of the climate unit. And when you try to search things while driving, like, oh, what's the fuel economy or something, you're just taking more time here in the OS 8 in this updated infotainment system. The only thing I feel, told you that early in the interior part, is more reliable is the wireless Apple CarPlay connection, here also with the Android Auto meanwhile. That seems to be more reliable nowadays, because before that in the old systems you tend to lose contact with that. So yeah, that's also the reason I'm still a fan of having a, oh, that's a nice old Mercedes W123. Yeah, that's correct. Beautiful vehicle, right? Beautiful vehicle. If you want to see, by the way, a vintage 3 Series, like the M3 old versus new comparison, we also have a video of that here on Auto Gefühl. Just put in YouTube search Auto Gefühl M3 and you will also find it. It's a beautiful video together with LG. Yeah, visualization-wise, it's pretty cool with the OS 8 here, especially here the digital instruments. They look a little bit fresher. Also, the displays are a little bit crisper. Here now on the next traffic light, we can test again this accelerating out of a corner, and then you will really feel that rear-wheel drive here with the vehicle. That's beautiful. That's so nice. I mean, with the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, not being in the sport mode, and then just slightly applying more throttle in the corner, and you feel like the rear is coming around. Yeah, that's why rear-wheel driven cars are just so awesome for driver-focused people. What I mean is people who are interested in driver-focused cars. That's what I mean. Like me and you. Okay, you get what I mean. Yeah, that's just lovely. That's really the only downside you have to most of the other engines with the Audi A4 or A5 and so on. Yeah, but other than that, still in this mid-size segment, the Audi is to me still the car that applies to most of the things I appreciate. That's what I said earlier. Here with this brand internal thing, you definitely always feel this is here the sports approach, but you do lose comfort in comparison to the 5 Series. What about moving around, maneuvering, parking and so on? Well, this is here 25 centimeters or 10 inches shorter. So it does make a difference, especially in Europe when you have some smaller gaps while parking and so on. It's not the best car to ease in and out of a parking lot. Definitely, like a compact SUV or something has more overview and it's easy to park in and out. Again, in the US, as long as you're not in, maybe like East Coast, maybe some narrow areas or something, but especially when you're like West Coast rather, for example, or other states where you have more space, then it doesn't make a big difference having a 3 or 5 Series. It's more maybe about the price. I'll talk about the price when we have a final verdict for the day. But one thing that again speaks for the 5 Series is you can have that rear axle steering option. And then actually, at least for easing the car in and out somewhere, there is hardly any difference. I always feel when I'm going into my basement garage and I have a bigger vehicle with rear axle steering against a small vehicle without that, I'm just like, more straight in the parking box without correcting back and forth and so on. So that just helps. But now to something like a 3 Series, play all of its advantages. One time to the sports mode and also to the sports shifting mode, and now we have some winding corners. Let's see how the 3 Series performs right here. Of course, now that sport is set up, well, it does give me the bumps into my body, yes, but of course the sport setup also plays a nice role to have more fun here. The ESP, by the way, the stability control here, it does limit wheel spin. We just experienced that. We had the wet roading and also some hinges there. Wow. Yeah, that is really slippery here. I'm still, morning, the road is a little bit wet. Yeah, so see here, it's really limiting everything I have. So that would be a little bit different with the all-wheel drive. But you can, of course, put it to the ESC Sport. However, that's not recommended then for public roads. But the agility here, how the car performs left and right, is really, really nice. So it is a lot of fun to drive it. Yeah, but I really wonder, especially here in the sports mode, I would expect that the stability systems rule a little bit later actually, but yeah, this is the thing here about the 3 Series, it's a lot of fun to drive. And now to the BMW 5 Series, we also go to the sports mode. And once again, accelerate onto the German Autobahn. Start at the very same speed, 40 kilometers an hour. This one is now here, the 6-cylinder, is a second quicker. So about 5 seconds in the acceleration figure instead of 6 seconds with the 330i we had in the 3 Series today. So let's go. 130, 150, and now the Tesla Model Y ended our acceleration test. Blame him. Let us keep in lane. But we can still drive fast in our. Oh, it's picking up the speed there, that Tesla. Come on, let's do it. So 180 kilometers an hour. Wind noise, of course, also a little bit louder now, but I feel that it would be maybe a little bit more silent in the 3 Series, but I wouldn't say that there is a huge difference in the noise insulation. I also feel really calm and collected here as for suspension when I'm also doing a lane change at higher speeds. Very nice in control. The steering feeling is not too different either. I think the 3 Series is a little bit more aggressive as for the steering feeling. So, well, progressive you could also say. So, that's the S63L. Interesting here. Bulgarian number plate. So with the 3 Series, I feel they have tweaked the suspension in a way that it does more, and here it's more set out to be a little bit calmer, which is also fitting to the vehicle. Adaptive suspension in here too, also equipped with weaker tires, not the biggest wheels, and definitely this suspension is way more forgiving. Okay, we don't have the M Sport suspension here, but the base suspension setup is definitely sportier in the 3 Series and less sporty in the 5 Series, and it definitely gives us more comfort in riding, not only from the suspension but also from the seats. So the seats here just give me more space, and especially when you're a little bit taller like I am, then these seats here are giving you way more comfort. So immediately feeling more comfortable and more at home thus in this vehicle here. Really nice ambient lighting. This is also what I do prefer here.
Once colonization was complete, the military force was disbanded, and a new force, the Armored Infantry, was created as the guardians of a new utopian Earth and its colonies.
More than 100 days after releasing for the Xbox 360's Live Arcade, this downloadable shooter has finally landed on the PS3's PlayStation Network. It seems this game has finally gotten over its PlayStation prejudice. Aw, kumbaya freaking ya, it's Section 8 Prejudice. And don't worry, PlayStation fans, this game is every bit as sweet on your console as it was on the Xbox 360. That is to say, it's not really all that sweet.
I'm gonna ask you again. Where are you getting your technology? Who's been manufacturing your weapons?
You think you'll get answers? You don't even know the right questions.
But, and here's some priceless video game analysis for you, it is kinda sweet. Section 8 Prejudice is a sequel to the 2009 original Section 8, a multiplayer-focused FPS from the small Texas developer Timegate Studios. And this game addresses one of the big shortcomings of the first, that being the lack of a campaign. So in Prejudice, you get a full single-player mode complete with a story and trophies, and even boring levels.
On your toes, Captain. Almost lost you there.
But Section 8 Prejudice also does a lot of things pretty well. Emphasis on a lot. The game's strongest asset is its sheer amount of content. Especially for a downloadable game, this is an impressive package. In addition to the campaign mode, the game also features several multiplayer modes, and once again, those are Section 8's focus. So you have Assault, which pits two teams against each other in a race to capture points on the map, and you have Conquest, which is a mission-based multiplayer mode. But then there's Swarm, which is a survival mode that just sends waves of enemies at you and just a few allies, and is also probably the most fun and addictive gameplay mode in Prejudice. But for all the game does well in terms of packing modes into a $15 downloadable package, the gameplay isn't quite as enthralling. And one of the reasons for that is the weaponry. As much of it as there is, none of it is all that satisfying to use. Whether you graze an enemy's temple or you put a bullet right through his forehead, kind of feels the same either way. And it's unfortunate because I like some of the ideas here. You're playing as this badass in an armored suit, kind of like the Terminator meets the Rocketeer. You can hover through the air, you can burst forward with speed. These are interesting abilities, but the gameplay never really feels designed around them.
Something has them spooked.
We're Section 8. Spooked by what?
In fact, the gameplay never really feels designed around anything. It doesn't have a whole lot of character, even though the potential definitely seems to be there. And frankly, even the campaign mode feels kind of thoughtless. And that is, it never feels cohesive. It's like a collection of multiplayer levels just strung together with some cutscenes. And some of the objectives in that campaign, unfortunately, reinforce that vibe.
You're very close, Captain. Tap into the controls. I'll reconfigure the mech arms to disable the safety valves.
But as with the first Section 8, this is a game for multiplayer. Section 8 Prejudice is a decent choice. Just don't expect anything mind-blowing. I guess head-blowing, maybe. Head-blowing off. This is unbelievable. I'm a Deadeye.
Jammer 2 is ready.
Recognize the admission of Finland and Sweden to NATO, because we all know that, looking from an historical perspective, NATO members have brought their national issues to the
Television's original automotive magazine, brought to you by Pep Boys. No matter what you drive, Pep Boys has over 27,000 items in stock, virtually any part for any car, with all the name brands you know, plus service bays staffed with ASE certified technicians. Pep Boys, parts, tires, accessories, service. Your host for Motor Week, John Davis.
Well, hello and welcome again to Motor Week. We're glad to have you with us. Longtime Motor Week viewers have frequently heard us use the phrase, win on Sunday, sell on Monday. Are Mondays about to get a lot more exciting for Chevrolet dealers? They are, if the reactions that we saw while driving the 2000 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS are anything to go by. Everywhere we drove, we heard a common refrain: it sure looks like a race car. More specifically, the ground-shaking factory racers that Chevy campaigns in the NASCAR Winston Cup Stock Car Series. That instant connection with famous racing names like Earnhardt, Gordon, and Labonte is just what Chevy stylists had in mind when they pinned the lines for the latest Monte Carlo. The look is stockier than last year's Lumina look-alike, with a deep, aggressive nose wearing distinctive reflector optic headlamps and inset fog lamps, as well as a hefty squared-off spoiler-bedecked tail, and a profile so close to Winston Cup spec that future factory race cars will use production sheet metal in the hood, roof, and deck lid. But while NASCAR gets pushrod V8 power, Chevy opted to still equip the Street SS with a pushrod V6. But that's okay when it's GM's proven 3800 Series 2 V6. Its 3.8 liters now pumps out 200 horsepower and 225 pound-feet of torque. The base Monte Carlo gets GM's 180 horse 3.4 liter V6. And while its standard 4-speed automatic transmission delivers slow but very solid shifts, we wish for an American-style long-throw manual to further cement the banked oval connection. Though on our flat test track, the SS also acquits itself reasonably well, with a best 0 to 60 time of 7.5 seconds and a quarter-mile run of 15.7 seconds at 89 miles per hour. Throttle response is very good, with the engine pulling strongly from idle to redline. Only the lazy gearbox held it back. The 3,300-pound Monte Carlo SS does well in the corners, too. Turn-in is slow and deliberate, but the car goes precisely where pointed both left and right. 16-inch tires and a tighter sports suspension control side-to-side transitions on the SS very well, despite notable body roll, and the power rack and pinion steering is accurate with a fine level of feedback. Out on the open road, the McPherson strut suspension matches precise handling with a firm but comfortable ride even on rough pavement. With a chassis based on the new Impala sedan, the Monte Carlo SS Coupe is solid and quiet thanks to body structure enhancements like a new aluminum engine cradle and stiffer sheet metal. Braking performance lags a bit, however. 130-foot stops from 60 is an average result for the Monte Carlo standard four-wheel disc with ABS. And while stability is very good, the ABS system is noisy when worked hard. Not that you'll think much about work when tucked inside the Monte's big, dark, comfortable cabin. The dash is ultra clean with a very practical layout, but even with low luster plastics, the lack of any bright trim results in a utilitarian are big enough to read even at racing speeds, and the cluster is comprehensive. The optional CD-equipped stereo is idiot-proof like most GM controls, as are the SS Monte's standard dual-zone climate controls. Less garish graphics are our only request. And this is one coupe with plenty of rear seat room, thanks to 3 added inches of wheelbase and 1 inch greater rear legroom, enough to keep full-sized adults comfy for a few hundred laps. And their luggage as well, thanks to the low-lift 15.8 cubic foot trunk. To help keep you on the road for those long trips, all Monte Carlos come equipped with a tire pressure monitoring system for flat tire early warning, while SS models also get standard all-speed traction control. Not a bad package in our opinion, though hardly a Winston Cup race car. Of course, it does cost a few $100,000 less than one of those. Prices for the base Monte Carlo LS start at $19,850. If you crave the SS, you'll part with at least $22,295. We think that's a good buy in a big 5-passenger coupe, as we grew to understand the appeal of the Winston Cup look, though we wish Chevy would give the SS 8-cylinder performance to match those looks. As do our friends at Automobile Magazine, who said that, with its legendary name and its strong NASCAR association, the Monte Carlo deserves better. Well, maybe next year. We can only wish for a V8-powered Dale Earnhardt Special Edition that Winston Cup fans would really love. But for 2,000 Monte Carlo buyers will still get a car that's capable, comfortable, and one that looks like a Sunday afternoon winner on Monday morning and all week long.
Signals intelligence, which is basically information that has been harvested through spying and spying on the
platform of the alliance whenever any particular topic came to the agenda.
Let's to thank one of our sponsors, Farmers Insurance.
I've seen this movie before.
You have?
Sure. This is the part where all is lost and the hero searches for hope. Then a mysterious figure reminds her that she has the Farmer's Home Policy Perk guaranteed replacement cost, and that her home will be rebuilt regardless of her limits or if the cost of materials has gone up.
That's really something.
Get a whole lot of something with Farmer's Policy Perks. Wait, I didn't ruin the ending, did I?
Yeah, you did.
We are farmers, bum 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 bum.